Bam! All right, we're back. So, today's guest, her name is Carley. And let me read a little bit of a bio about Carley. So, Carley is a soon to be mom with 12 years of sobriety. She has had a few pivotal moments in her life that have led her to great changes that were both terrifying and yet what led to her successes. She owns a business in a thankless industry and is just learning to live day by day as the people and places and things around her change. So, just going to wait for her to get here, and then we'll bring her on. Here we go. Let's welcome Carley. Hello, Carley.
Hello, how's it going?
Not too bad. Yeah, I just read your bio. It's always interesting to read, like, mom, a new soon to be mom. That's one thing. 12 years sobriety, nothing. Working in a thankless industry is another. It's like, there's just so many common similarities that what people are going through, this time of year. A lot of changes, a lot of reflections, and a lot of kind of projections of where they're going to go for the next year. So I read your bio. That's a little bit there, but can you tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background and stuff?
I was born and raised in Ontario. um, I had two extremely loving parents
Mm-hmm.
who divorced when I was 6 years old, and so I had more parents join the mix at that point. Um, some different personalities for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely people who helped shape me and form me as a person and guide me into being the person that I am today. Um, I guess really just showing me how to deal with different types of personalities, which prepared me for my thankless industry. um, it's been a whirlwind of a life, but I really wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't be in the place that I'm at today
Mm-hmm.
without having gone through everything that I've gone through in my life. Um, you know, uh, Childhood was, I mean, reflecting on it, it wasn't uh, difficult per se. I went through difficult times
Mm-hmm.
and didn't know how to handle it properly. And only through sobriety, um, going through things with people and changing and becoming accepting of change, which was a really, really hard one for me, which is a really hard one for a lot of people. Change is
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to deal with, to accommodate, to not be fearful of.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, like, one of the biggest changes is going to be happening to me in the next 3 months. I'm going to become a mom. And I mean, people keep telling me nothing can prepare you for it. And I mean, that's scary. You think that you think you have everything lined up and prepared, and no. I mean, you can have certain things set up like the nursery, and who knows when the baby will be ready for the nursery. So these are all crazy changes that I have nothing, absolutely no control over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going back to, so my first real pivotal change in my life was sobriety. Um, I went through the AA program because of the support network that I had in my life who were also in the AA program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can tell you two things about that program. It is a great program if you work it, and it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it works for some people. It doesn't work for other people. I did not go about it in the way that many, many other people go about it. I did not do it the way that they tell you to do it. I was still working in the restaurant industry when I quit drinking, which is a really tough one. but I had this idea in my head that I wanted to keep things the same in my life. If this one thing was going to change, then everything else had to stay the same around me. And that worked for a little while until I started changing. And when I started changing, I started letting go of the idea that everything around me had to stay the same, which was, again, it was very difficult. I went through a lot of friend changes, which at the age of 24, when I quit drinking, it was very important to me to keep my friend base. So I probably put myself in situations that I probably shouldn't have, like going out to nightclubs and, you know, trying to maintain that type of lifestyle, which it allowed me to see what I didn't want in my life anymore. It allowed me to start standing up for myself. It allowed me to start speaking my truth. It was scary being sober at 24 years old, because what else do you do? You know, I came from the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, where that's the lifestyle. Like you work your shift and then you go out and you party, or you work your shift and you go and hang out with your friends, and all of your friends tend to do the same thing that you're doing, which is having a drink to relax after work. Now, mind you, after work is 4 or 5 in the morning, you know? So what led me to quitting was a series of poor judgment calls. I was very fortunate in that I never lost anything except a lot of dignity. I was fortunate enough to be able to recognize that I had a problem at that time that I needed to do something about. Like I said, I had a really great support system. The people that I met in my early sobriety really, really did help me and support me and guide me and, you know, give me some really, really good advice on how to move forward in my life. So my first year of sobriety was about being sober and just staying away from drinking. And I succeeded in that. And then once I got into my second year of sobriety, it became more about learning how to live my life without drinking. And that was a whole new ballgame, because getting sober is one thing. It's tough. An alcoholic's first thing that they do is think about drinking and how they're going to get their drink, how they're going to, you know, maneuver their day around drinking, getting their drink, and having that good time that they have in their head, that you're constantly chasing after the good time. Living life sober is totally different, because it's not about staying away from the drink. It's about learning how to live your life again. And that was kind of a pivotal moment within my sobriety. When I stopped worrying about, oh my God, you know, I can't go to this place because I'm going to be around drinking, or I can't do this because I'm going to be around drinking. And that's when I started going out with my friends again and putting myself in situations that I probably shouldn't have. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? I can look at it now and say, oh my God, like that was really, really dumb. But at the time, it was what I needed to do in order to continue living my life the way that I wanted to live it. When I got to around 5 years sober, I started doing things for myself instead of those around me. And so in this sobriety time as well, I also took on a new job. I took on working at a Service Ontario center, which back then was a driver and vehicle office. So there's been so much change on my spectrum And it wasn't just personal change, it was job change and the changes within the job, because we went from a driver and vehicle office to a Service Ontario office, and therefore took on a whole new clientele of people. We got all new transactions to do, so we got all new people to deal with. And dealing with going from being an employee at Service Ontario to being a manager, to being the general manager, to being the owner, it was very chaotic, but it was also very rewarding. So it also gave me something to focus on other than sobriety. Hang on 2 seconds. Sorry, pregnancy. It does weird things to your body. So within getting sober and learning how to be sober and learning how to not identify as being sober, but just living my life, were very, very crazy times for me. It's very emotional, because a lot of times when you're drinking or you're using other sources to numb yourself, you're not feeling, you're not going through the motion of going through the whole process of feeling angry, hurt, happy, sad. It's just all numb, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm living a good life. When you're sober, it's like, oh my God, I have to go through this feeling of guilt for what I feel I've done, or you have to go through the feeling of being sad, of being angry, of being hurt. My first breakup that I went through in sobriety was very hard on me, because I felt guilty for breaking up with the person because our paths weren't aligning. And, you know, again, looking back on things, had I stuck with that person, where would I be in my life? Would I be in the same mental place as I am now? Who knows? He was a great guy, just wasn't in line with what I wanted. And I wanted to go forth in my business and explore that option and that chapter. And here I am 11 years later at the office. And, you know, it's had its moments where I've gone, oh my God, maybe I should have like not gone this route, but it's taught me so much in my life, how to deal with people, how to handle problems, how to handle problems in my personal life, how to go into work and not have my personal problems affect my work life. It's tough maintaining all of those different levels. And I don't think if I was not sober that I would have been able to handle this job. Sobriety has offered me so many amazing things in my life, and I truly wouldn't go back and change it. I wouldn't have. I'm happy I stuck with it. It was one of the hardest yet easiest things I've done, and for a lot of people, it's not easy. It just worked for me, and I worked for it. It wasn't always easy. There were a lot of times that my family went through during sobriety that, I mean, anyone else would have picked up a drink. I decided that wasn't going to be the way for me. It wasn't going to work for me to go that route. And staying sober was really, really important, because it helped me to keep a level mind. It helped me to try to keep the emotions of everything at bay. You know, I've dealt with suicide attempts of family members. I've dealt with marriage breakdown in family members. I've dealt with people coming forward about assault, sexual assaults, that I wouldn't have been able to handle had I been drinking. It just would have become all about me and how it's affecting me. And it allowed me to be there for the people that needed the help, that needed it, and to be able to be the best daughter, sister, that I could possibly be to my family, granddaughter. You know, I thought I was taking care of things, but again, hindsight is 2020, and oftentimes when we think we're taking care of things, we're just enabling behaviors in other people, but also enabling behaviors in ourselves. Again, in the sobriety, learning about how to walk that fine line of enabling and not enabling. I mean, like, it's still a daily struggle sometimes. That, I mean, it's one of those things that you can learn to identify and say, hey, this is making me uncomfortable, and I'm just going to step back for a moment and see where this all goes.
Yeah. So here's a question. While you were drinking, because you know, I've had my past with drinking as well, and I'll be 7 years sober as in February.
Congrats.
So I'm always curious to know what the drink represented to individuals, because at the beginning when I started, it was, okay, I'm going out because this is what, like you said, this is what you do at this age. It seems to be like the normal construct, the normal thing that people do. But I felt that for me, a drink represented who I wanted to be and who I thought the bottle would give me. You know, the really interesting thing about alcohol, there's the Middle Eastern people, they called it, was it alcohol, which meant spirit, which means that when you were to drink it, a spirit would enter your body. Back in the old Socrates philosophy days, they used to believe that those that would drink would allow another spirit to come in. And when I was reading about a lot of this, I thought it was interesting because, you know, there's so many nights where people were like, I would never do that. That's not me. Because I actually do believe that it's not, but you're allowing some entity, something else to come into your body. And when they come in and they like it, they're going to want to come in again and again and again. And eventually you're pushing yourself down and you're letting something else go up.
Yeah.
For me, it was, okay, it was fun, but then it's like, okay, the social norms, okay, fine. But then it was like, I don't know how to talk to this person. Maybe the answer's at the bottom of the bottle. And drink. And everybody like, oh, you're so much fun drinking. I'm like, I guess I'm fun with the bottle in my hand. Drink. And I went to extreme levels. Closer to the end of my drinking, I was actually cutting down, and I changed my lifestyle. And I started to ask questions. I'm like, what brings purpose to my life? And what do I feel is taking it away? And I'm like, drinking. So I went 1 year without it. I didn't do AA, but I did what you did. I changed my group of friends. It was hard because they become your identity. And then I started hanging out with rock climbing people. I started hanging out with different individuals that when they're like, I'm going to go get a drink, I'm like, okay. And then I hung out with other people that weren't. And when they would go get a drink, I kept on creating these different groups, which was crazy because sometimes we believe our identity is the people we hang around with, but it's not. So to me, drinking was my courage. Drinking made me feel that I could be something that apparently that I wasn't, because I wasn't enough without a bottle in my hand. And when I put down that bottle, it felt great. And I still remember my best friend's wedding. Everybody was there and I was sober, and people walked in, everybody's drinking, and I'm like, I was anxious, I was worried. I'm like, I need a drink. Like, I'm around all these people. Who am I? Questioning my worth. And then at the end of the night, everybody's like, bro, like, that was such a good night. It was so good to get to know you. I'm like, maybe there is something more to me. So that's just a little story on my thing. But so what did it represent to you in your life?
It definitely was how I identified myself. I started drinking really early on. I was 14 when I started
Mm.
drinking, and I was a weekend binge drinker. I hung out
Mm.
with an older crowd, so it helped me to identify with this older crowd. Oh, well, I can keep up with them. Um, and it continued. And I remember going to school one morning, and it was within the last week of high school. So, I wasn't really worried about anything, but a teacher said to me, "Hey, man, you have to leave my class because you reek of alcohol."
Mm.
And it should have been an eye-opening experience, but it wasn't. It was oh, okay, well, see you later. Have a good life. I'm never going to see you again because this is the last class. Um, it it was a part of my identity. Carley liked to drink.
Mm.
Um, you can count on Carley to go out for a drink. You want to go down to the bar, Carley's going to want to go too. So yeah, it was a huge part of my identity when I was young. And when I quit, I didn't know how to identify myself. All of a sudden, I have to find a new way to connect with people. And finding that connection was really, really tough. And in fact, in my early sobriety, I had a few close friends who stuck by my side and were really, really understanding. But I really shied away from doing anything because I didn't know how to socialize anymore. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to talk to people. Exactly what you said. Like, how do I have a conversation with this person? I don't know what to talk about. What is there to talk about? Usually when I'm drinking, everyone's telling me I'm having a good time, I'm having fun, I'm going to start fights, and
Hmm.
you know, these were the things that were common for me. So to find new commonalities with people was, oh my God, okay, like I actually have to sit here, pay attention,
Hmm.
and have a conversation with someone. And at first, it was very tough. I didn't know how to talk to people. It was, like I said, it was a pivotal changing moment because I had to relearn how to do all these things that
Yeah.
I had counted on having a couple drinks to, give me some nerves. And, like they always say, the nerves were at the bottom of the bottle, so you chug the bottle. And you just hope to God that it comes to you. And, used to be quite social and was able to be around a lot of people. And I mean, now, like, my friends have my friends have all changed, but I have changed, and I've had to learn to accept their changes in order to have them accept my changes.
Mm.
Um, it's always tough for the people around you as well, because they think that by you looking at yourself and making a change for yourself, that you're judging them. And that
Hmm.
was never the case for me. There was so much chaos in my life that something had to give somewhere.
Mm.
And it wasn't going to be anything around me, it was going to be me. And it took 2.5 years of a family member being in sobriety and going to AA for me to finally go to a meeting for myself. Two and a
Hmm.
half years of, maybe you have a problem. Maybe you could go and do something for yourself. Maybe you should try this. And never really a big push or a big, like, oh, you're an alcoholic and you need to go and do something about it. But a lot of birds chirping in my ear for 2.5 years. Those little yellow pamphlets being left around the house. And if you answer more than 5 of these questions, you're definitely an alcoholic. um, but and it's funny because I keep in contact with very few people from AA, but I've stayed in contact with the girl who was my sponsor, who inevitably has just become a staple being in my life.
Mm.
And we're friends, and we learned to co-sponsor one another, and we were just there for one another. And that was one of the greatest things of our AA experience, was that we had someone to connect with that was sort of on the same playing field, that there was no judgment. And it was just, hey man, I'm going through this, and I don't know how to handle it. What do you think? Do you have any ideas? What should I do? I've got this big event coming up. I've got a wedding to go to, and I don't know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And we would come up with strategies, and usually the strategy was to have an exit plan, and just, drive yourself so that you know that you can leave whenever you want. And so, I mean, that it still kind of holds true for me. I still like to drive everywhere because then I have an exit plan. But that's just something that I sort of put into myself, and it's something that made me comfortable in social settings and social situations. And yeah, she's still a huge part of my life. And she was great for me, because she wasn't there holding my hand through everything.
Mm-hmm.
She was someone to bounce ideas off of. Going through life, some of us have expectations that, people have to hold our hands and guide us through every situation. But we don't learn anything from that, because we're doing it someone else's way. So learning how to go through these situations, learning how to put the bottle down, learning how to have a conversation with someone, learning how to go and do different things, like going bowling. You don't bring a 26 or a rye with you anymore. You go bowling. It was all new territory at 24 years old, 25 years old. And yeah, like it was just, it's very true. I identified with the person I was when I drank, and that's who people knew. That's who people remembered. So, if someone had seen me prior to quitting, and then a couple years later saw me, I was no longer the same person, because I started learning how to do all of these things without having a drink in my hand.
Yep, it's really interesting that when you first have a drink, it's nothing, but then eventually you create an identity with it. It becomes you. I was the guy that could drink anybody under the table. I was that fun, crazy guy, dancing, late night foods, women, like that's who I was. That was my identity. So it's almost like the bottle became my alter ego, and I became so entwined with my alter ego that I forgot who the person was to begin with. It's almost like all of us have an alter ego. It's like we're all Superman, but when you put on the glasses or when you pick up the bottle, we become Clark Kent, or vice versa. So eventually we start forgetting who we truly are, and we start thinking, well, that's me. Without that I'm not enough. I can't do enough. People aren't going to like me. Like, what do I have to say? I'm not anything. Like, if I'm standing with somebody and we're in a bar, like, if I can't be like, yo, let's go for some shots, and like show how crazy I am with drinks, then maybe they won't like me, because all that's left is just me, and who am I? I'm not enough. And something I want to ask you is, because you spoke about AA, what are some principles that it taught you that you could share with other people that they could use in their lives, even without drinking?
Oh, the whole 12-step program is a really, really awesome program. It's very God-based. So my girlfriend and I used to talk about how if you just took God out of every one of those principles, that it's living life as a good person, being mindful of how you treat people, live and let live. That was
Hmm.
always a tough one for me because I mean, it's still, like I said, like these are still things that I practice in my daily life. Live and let live is one of them. Um, no one's going to do things my way. And what I had to learn was to let people live their life. And if they needed help or guidance, they would come and ask.
Hmm.
But to not just force opinions upon people or to utilize. I mean, I've been through a lot in my life, so I know a lot about a few things, but I know very little about a lot of things. And I had to become open to other people's experiences, their strength, their hope, to be able to find some of that in my own life. And maybe the way that I was dealing with situations wasn't the best because I kept having to deal with the same situation. And when you're dealing with the same situation over and over again, and nothing's changing, that's insanity.
Hmm.
And so you have to give somewhere. Um, so learning how to deal with that, live and let live. Um, I still am pretty stubborn in a lot of things, and I'm still like bullheaded about a lot of things, but I can pinpoint where my faults are now. I can tell you that I am a bullheaded person because I'm okay with it now. Um, I like the person that I've become. And it took a long time to love the person that I am. And still sometimes a daily struggle, but you know, I find the good. Oh, there's Nikki in the background. um,
She wants to be in
the,
this too.
yeah, sneaky cat. Um, Learning to love the person that I am and what I have to offer people, and knowing that I've worked very hard to become the person that I am. It's been, you know, years of going to therapists, talking to social workers, talking to doctors. Um, this isn't how everyone does things. This isn't, you know, some people don't want to go that route, but for
Hmm.
me, it was necessary for me to be able to learn how to let go and let God. That's another one. Um, just people are going to live their life regardless of what you have to say, regardless of your experience with things. They're going to live their life. And then maybe one day you'll meet up again and you'll talk about your experience, share it, and be able to move forward from it. Um, it's you know it can be tough. One of the sayings, and it's not even a principle, but it was, it is what it is. I
Hmm.
hated that saying when I first heard it, and I was like, well, what do you mean it is what it is? I don't understand this. I need to know every detail. And now I find myself using that saying all the time.
Hmm.
Well, it is what it is. And you know, I've become very accepting of people, their flaws, places, their flaws, things, their flaws. I mean, um, talking of pivotal moments, you and I were in Peru at the same time. You had a very different experience than I did. I was
I did.
hospitalized for 4 days and came home very disappointed and very humbled by that whole experience of training for months and months and months to do this hike to be taken out by a stomach bug.
Hmm.
And, um, you know, it took quite a few Reiki sessions to come to terms with the fact that I may not have physically climbed mountains there, but the emotional and mental mountains that I was able to climb while shacked up in that hospital for 4 days.
Hmm.
It was an incredible experience for me. Um, I came home very accepting of the way that things are, and you know, like I think being accepting of change in your life and going with the flow and learning how to just live and let live. Um, it's been a truly incredible experience. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
No, thank you. I'm just always interested in like the step programs that they have because I believe that we should have a support group. And if there's individuals around us that are exhibiting behaviors that we're currently trying to change, that it's not for us to judge them because we've just become aware of them, but go find something else. Go find another group. There will
Yeah.
always be a group of people out there. When it comes to therapy and all these ideas, people think that to go seek somebody for therapy, that there's something wrong, but I disagree. Some of the greatest minds in the world, some of the greatest athletes in the world, some of the greatest people in the world, they have a therapist because what they essentially need is I currently don't have somebody who can hold space for me.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to hold space for me. I'm going to pay you with no judgment, and then I'm going to be able to leave there feeling relief. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think having that, being in a group of individuals, or it's just like, let me share my problem with you. People are like, well, I have it too. And then you're like, whoa, one sec. So if you guys all have it, then maybe I'm not like there. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
One of the ideas I had, like a lot of kids that commit suicide, you know, if they were only to sit in a group with other kids that were going to commit suicide and be like, so this is why I'm going to kill myself. And the other guy would be like, oh, well, that's actually what I'm going to kill myself for. Like, I've had my suicidal thoughts. Like I'm alive today. I didn't go through with a lot of it. And sometimes it's just like even when you have the thoughts of being a failure, like I'm such a failure, I couldn't even kill myself. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy these thoughts that we have. But what I'm trying to get to is the stories and the things that you're sharing is it's finding a way to find commonality with people around you. It's
Absolutely.
understanding that it's not for you to change the world around you, but it's for you to change the world inside of you. And by doing that, it will change the world around you because you create an awareness of what do I want, what don't I want. But it's also the idea that, which I commend you at such a young age to do, was that is the norm. That's normal. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's drinking, which then to shift that at a young age and change that perspective and attitude to where it's like that, like your 20s, like you really want to fit in. Like, it's such a pivotal point in people's lives, and to be like, I'm going to make a change. I commend you for that because that takes a lot of strength. That takes a lot of willpower. That just takes a lot out of an individual to want to do and to want to change, especially at the age of 20 where you're still trying to come up with your own identity and you don't
Yeah.
even know what coming up with your own identity is because you'd be like a lot of us believe this is life, like you said, it is what it is. That's what a lot of people say but they say it in a different way. It's like, well, why did you go out drinking? Oh, it is what it is. Well, why did you go do those drugs? It is what it is. Like, why are you working at the job? It is what it is. Why are you like, it's almost like that mantra can almost justify like all your actions because that is how it is.
Yeah.
But if you use it in a different way, it can be very free and very liberating. So my question here now is people that are feeling inside of themselves where they're questioning their identity, they're questioning their worth, they're questioning themselves. Through your experience at such a young age, what advice would you give to them?
Um, I would say seek out some help, whether it be through a friend who maybe understands you, or a parent, or a family member, a coworker, um, reaching out to um, reach out,
Mm,
talk about it. I found that the more that I talked about things, the more I had in common with other people, exactly what you said. And once you find that common ground with someone and you have that something to talk about, then it becomes a lot easier. Your problem doesn't feel so heavy anymore. Um, change is always going to be difficult because you don't know what's coming. And I
Mm.
think for someone like me who's a control freak, not knowing what's coming is one of the scariest, most anxiety inducing things ever. Um, so to sit there and talk with someone about it, to say, hey, man, like, I don't know how to wrap my head around this, or I'm feeling really low. I'm feeling like I can't get out of this hole. Um, if you talk about it with someone, it makes your problem a little less problematic because now
Mm.
you've shared it with someone. And so now you have someone else thinking of ideas for you and saying, hey, well, maybe this will work. This worked for me. I maybe can't say that I felt like you were in this in the extreme that you are, but I have found that this has worked for me in times where I've felt a little lost.
Mhm.
Um, and I think becoming okay with feeling lost is a big, um, it's a big thing to do. Like, I felt lost, and I mean, there are still times where I feel lost, and um, thinking about the future, and thinking about having a baby, and again, like all of these crazy changes that are coming that are so out of my control. Um, the only thing that I can do is go in with an open mind, an open heart, and open ears, and just listen to the people around me and ask questions. And the more questions, I mean, like, you have to remember when you're asking questions, you're going to hear things that you don't want to hear.
Mhm.
Um, and everything that people say to you is not going to necessarily work for you. But they're giving you their experience, strength, and hope because that's what they went through. And they're telling you what worked for them. And some of it will work. Maybe a modification to it will work for you. Um, and I think that was a big part of my learning curve, was not taking everything that everyone said verbatim and applying it to my life, but applying it to my life in a way that worked for me. Okay, well, if they went about it A through G, maybe I can do B, C, F, H, I, J, K.
Mhm.
And sort of creating your own path. Um, it's it's hard, but life was never promised to be easy. It was promised to you, and it's what you make of it. It's
Mhm.
your mentality about it. Um, if you choose to be happy and look at things in a positive light, you tend to see the more positive things in your life. If you are unhappy and miserable and you're choosing to see all the negativity in your life, well, man, there's a lot of negativity. And it's really, really easy to pick out the negativity. It's a lot harder to be positive. It's a lot harder to be um, looking for the good things in your life. It's you really have to search it out some days. Again, that ties into the thankless industry, that ties into getting sober, that ties into change, that ties into just about every aspect of my life personally. If I'm not looking for the positive things and I'm not looking for the great things that are going on in my life, I'm going to fall down that rabbit hole really, really quickly. And when I fall down that rabbit hole, I have to know how to bring myself back up out of it. And for me, it's talking to people. It's getting it off my chest.
Mhm.
Feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, on your chest. When you talk about it with someone and they say, hey, man, yeah, I'm going through the same thing. It's like, oh my God,
Mhm.
wow. Thank God that you are going through this too. How do we get out of it?
Mhm.
It's also having the to want to get better, to want to change, to want to see the positive. Um, because without having that want to do better and get better, you won't. Um, Finding the courage inside of you, finding that little bit of willpower, finding your own power to say, hey, I'm sick of this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do better for myself because I want better for myself. Um, that was, like you almost have to get down to your rock bottom in order to start building your ladder up. And my ladder was full of people that were supportive, talking about things, not holding it in. Mike will say that I overshare. You've heard him say that I overshare. But for me, that's how I get through my problems. I get through things by talking about them and hearing other
Mm-hmm.
people's experience, strength, and hope. Because without their experience, strength, and hope, well, what is there?
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So, because we're coming down on time, let me ask you one question before we go, which is if you could say anything to your younger self, what would you tell them?
Get sober. Listen to the people around you. They have the best intentions for you. Um, like just love yourself, learn to love yourself, and just keep doing what's best for you.
Mm-hmm.
That may not always be what's best for everyone around you, but do what's best for you. It may feel selfish, but that's only because society has trained us to believe that self-care is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's imperative in your being to self-care. And if that means saying no to going out one night, then that means saying no to going out one night and taking that nice hot bath and shutting your phone off and just, doing you. Um, love yourself. That would be what I would tell myself.
Beautiful. Well, before we go, I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge you as a human and as a person that's gone through these missions that has found this other path in life to discover so much more of your strength, your courage, your determination to where you are. One of the things, I really love about you is that you're you. You share your mind, you share your heart, you share the individual that you are, and you do it unapologetically, but very supportively. And I think that's a very great gift and a characteristic for an individual to have. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this. It was, um, as I said to you, I was very nervous about this, but it's a lot easier to do this on a phone than it is in a room full of people that are staring you down and, oh my God, what's
Exactly.
she gonna say?
It's a nice intimate way of doing it. It's the idea behind a lot of this is just two people having a conversation. It's not about trying to sell and it's not trying to make a pitch. It's just like I'm going to have a conversation with some of the most amazing people in my world and that I have a lot of respect for. Tune in, grab a cup of coffee and listen. And if this can inspire you or motivate you or help you feel connected, then beautiful.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's not for everyone, but there's so many beautiful people and there's so many great stories out in the world that it would just be a shame not to share it with other people. So if people who listen to this want to find you to ask you some further questions, where would they be able to look for you? Instagram or?
Yeah, Instagram is a great start. I've opened up my profile to be public, so anyone
Okay.
can message me. Feel free to reach out. Super unbiased opinion. Um, and like you said, very supportive of whatever people want to do. And yeah, if you need a chat, talk to me.
Beautiful. All right, Carly. Thank you so
No,
much.
no
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Have a great
We'll
day.
talk. You too.
Okay, bye.